See, yeah. No, but this is the thing. It's always terribly. Yeah, look at that. Here we go. See, she knows. She's a Hollywood royalty, so she knows how to start talking to the mic. Though.
Hi.
Hey, everybody, we are live. I'm Nancy Rommelmann. You're here in Paloma Media Studio. And one thing I want to get before we get to our lovely guest and my old friend Erika Schickel is today is apparently the first day that Paloma Media is monetized. So I don't know, guys, you might be seeing some ads. You might be able to pay us. I don't know how this works. All I'm saying is that it exists. So we are welcome to the big time. Hello, everybody. 2 viewers. I hope we get a few more. I am here with my old pal, Erika Schickel, who called me yesterday or sent a text and said, hey, I'm in town. Let's get a drink. Let's do something. So I'm rallying her into the studio. Wow, we are bright. Look at this. But it smooths out all the lines. Yeah. So it's good. We're working it. Erika, hi.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome.
Good to see you.
What are we here talking about?
We're here to talk about my new book, The Big Hurt.
Let's bring it in.
Can it get
closer? Oh, there we go. The Big Hurt. And what does Caitlin Flanagan say on it? She
said by something. You know what's hilarious about this is she's actually not a Pulitzer Prize winning author.
Does it say that?
Yes. She thinks it's hilarious.
She should be.
I don't know what Hachette was
Caitlin,
thinking.
we love you. You're amazing.
She's the greatest.
She is the greatest.
She said, by turns, ravishing and severe. It's a book I wanted to reread the moment I finished it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read it. I'm so sorry to say, which is bad for me.
We'll fake it.
We have enough to talk about because we have a lot of overlapping history and a lot of juicy stuff to get to. So guys, you should join us. Also, though I haven't been drinking for about 3 or 4 months, I am drinking tonight and we are having some tequila. Cheers. Yes. Okay. And there's a little story behind it.
This is the healthy alcohol.
Erika was saying that this alcohol is good for your biogut.
Your gut biome.
Your gut biome.
It's the only alcohol that won't actually do bad things to you.
This tequila was sent by this beautiful, beautiful bottle by Duncan McGregor. Duncan McGregor, who was at the Fifth Column's live show.
God bless you, Duncan.
God bless you, in Miami. We had a nice chat. And then he asked for the address here because he wanted to send a bottle of tequila to the Fifth Column dudes, but he sent it to Paloma. So I don't know.
What are you going to do?
I'm having a sip of it.
We're going to drink it.
So thank you, Duncan, very much. We appreciate that. And anyway, congratulations.
Thanks.
How long has it been out?
It came out in the beginning of August. So
okay.
It's been 3 months almost.
And just for all the book geeks out there, how long from when you sold it to when it came out?
Well, miraculously, I sold this book right in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of lockdown, which was extraordinary. Very lucky. So unlike everybody else in the world, I had work to do. Suddenly I was very busy with my career. So, it's standard 1.5 years.
Well, we have just, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting her, but it's a for her and by her and because of you, we have just been given some money.
Oh!
and there's a question. It says, this book doesn't have enough Frank Thomas content. What does that mean?
Good God.
We don't know what that means. Are you Frank Thomas? No, it says you are BU Vandals. We don't know what that means. So,
we're so sorry.
We're sorry.
My next book is going to be all Frank Thomas.
That's right. I knew a Jeremy Thomas. He owned The Room, the bar in LA. He was the one that was married to Drew Barrymore for 5 minutes. They got married when she was 18. God. Anyway, Jeremy was a great friend. He was Welsh. Anyway, this is super interesting, right? Okay, but we are going to get to Hollywood because we each have some.
We have all of that in common.
We're going to be here till 11 o'clock at night, by the way, talking about shit.
People.
So just strap in. Get your own drinks. Okay. He was a Hall of Fame baseball player for the White Sox. Yeah. If Matt Welch were sitting next to me, Matt would know all about everything, but I'm literally just the sidekick here when it comes to baseball.
I'm so sorry about that. I hashtag the Big Hurt whenever I tweet and then, everybody's looking for baseball content and I'm so sorry.
But maybe we'll get to it. Anyway, go Dodgers. Okay, so you sold the book. You sold the book during the pandemic, and it's out already. So within a year,
year and a half. Yeah. But I've been writing this book for 12 years. It was a long, long haul because it was a really hard book to write. I had never written anything longer than 10,000 words, so I had no idea how to write a complete book, and life kept happening during it. So I had divorced and my parents died and my kids were in arrears. So, everything got slowed down from life. But
So why don't you tell them a little bit about the book? What the book is about?
The book tells two stories that are very linked thematically. The first one takes place in between 1978 and 82 when I was in high school, because I'm old as fuck.
Me too. I'm the same. I'm basically the same.
And I went to this bohemian boarding school in the Berkshires, and I was sent there because I was sort of a troubled child. I had toxically divorcing parents, and it was the 70s, right?
So it was the 70s.
They wanted me out of the fucking house.
So when your kids say things to you like, Mom, wait, how did you get away with that? You're just like, honey, it was the 70s. It literally works.
Yeah.
Every time.
I was raised here in New York City by very interesting. My father was the film critic Richard Schickel, who wrote for Time magazine for many years and many books, etc. And my mother was a novelist. And the marriage fell apart, and I started cries for attention, bids for attention. I was doing some shoplifting and fucking around and all of that. And instead of reeling me in, they sent me to boarding school, which at first was a disaster.
What school was it?
The Buxton School in Williamstown, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I flourished in this school. Over the course of 4 years, I became a fantastic student, a member of excellent standing in the community. I discovered myself as a writer, as an actress. It was good. And then 6 weeks before graduation, I was seduced by a teacher, the music teacher, who was, of course, married.
Had you been flirting with him?
No. I had a crush on him, but it was never I never, ever would have thought that it would be reciprocated or anything. Well, lo and behold, it turns out what it was. And I slept with him one time. I mean, the whole affair lasted an entire week, just from Tuesday to Tuesday. And then I was the affair. Affair is the wrong word. Whatever it was discovered, and he was fired, and I was asked to leave the school.
And this is right before graduation.
6 weeks before I was to graduate. Had the school had honors, I would have been graduating with honors, but it was a very progressive bohemian school. So as a result, I began my adult life just sort of racked with shame, trauma, abandonment, all kinds of stuff.
Can I ask you? I'm going to interject here as the interviewer. Did you feel shame because the dude had been fired? Did you feel shame because you thought something that was sort of secret and maybe special was now just being used as a kickball to further whatever other people's agenda were?
I actually felt shame because I thought I was a dirty slut,
Why?
Because that's how it was back then. I had been predated upon by older men all through high school. And I had been stamped as a bad girl. It seemed like that's what I was. So I just assumed that that's what I was. And so cut to a few years later, I move to Los Angeles. I marry the first decent man I meet out there. And I begin to remake myself as a sort of model wife, mother. And
this is Los Angeles late 80s?
Yeah, I came to LA in 88. And so 90s.
I
had
in 86.
Kids in the 90s. And then
our lives just really parallel. Except you haven't come back.
Yeah. But
yeah.
maybe I will.
All right.
And then so I was a wreck, and I went and married this guy, and I tried to prove to the world that I was a worthy human. And I pushed the high school out of my mind. I put it behind me for 25 years. And then in 2009, just as Facebook started getting huge and people were finding each other on Facebook, I was found by my best friend from high school, a guy named CJ Dowlett, to whom this book is dedicated.
Oh, hey, CJ.
Alas, he is not with us anymore. And he called me up. No. He actually fell down a flight of stairs and broke himself. He fell out of his life. So anyway, I was contacted by him, and he said, Erika, this is what happened really with you. wrong was done to you. You were a kid and you should not have been kicked out of the school. And that was a sexual assault. And it just sort of reframed the whole thing for me, like in a way that I had never considered. And I went down a rabbit hole. I had written my first book, which was called You're Not the Boss of Me, which was sort of a hilarious memoir.
Yeah, it was cute.
And I was going to write the second book, was going to be a memoir about my sort of zany bohemian boarding school days. And I wanted it to be funny because I was a humor writer. And then as I started looking at the story, I realized that it was not a funny story at all, that it was incredibly sad. And then I was mourning my family, my mother, all kinds of things. So instead of, and here comes the second part of the book, instead of like going into therapy and dealing with my issues, I instead engaged an extramarital affair with a notorious crime writer who I call Sam Spade.
Do we name him or not?
Yeah, we can call him James Elroy. Not that
this is so interesting, but it might. I mean, I knew you at this time. I knew when this was happening because I knew Janet Duckworth.
Ah, yes.
So who he had previously been involved with. So two of my friends had been involved with Elroy. So it was kind of like, okay. Anyway, go for it.
So anyway,
we got your attention now. If we didn't have your attention before.
Why on earth would I do that? Be with a man who was, 16 years my senior, a known sort of sexual Lothario.
Yeah, he is a Lothario
person. I had never read any of his books at the time.
Yeah.
But I read a bunch of them.
I like Elroy.
I loved his memoir, My Dark Places. I think
it was great.
So brilliant.
Was great. And Killer on the Road was actually the first one that I was given by a guy in that bar, the room that Jeremy Thomas, who was married to Drew Barrymore. Okay. Anyway, go ahead. So
and also The Big Nowhere is an amazing book.
I have not read
it. Anyway, heartbreaking. Anyway, so I engaged this affair. The marriage blew up. And I began to realize that what I was doing was recreating the circumstances of my senior year in high school. I was throwing myself at an inappropriate, pedagogic older man. And it's all very Oedipal. And it was Oedipal in both directions because he thought that I was sort of his mother reincarnated. And his mother was famously murdered when he was 10 years old. And she was a pale-skinned, redheaded woman. And he projected all of that onto me. And it was a very compelling relationship. And even though he was a crazy son of a bitch, it was also one of the best relationships I ever had on one level.
About a year and a half? How long were you guys?
We were on and off for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I guess I moved up to Portland while you were still involved.
Yeah. So, I mean, it ended very badly, as anyone could have predicted. But anyway, so I was trying to write my straightforward high school memoir. And then I realized, oh my God, this is part of the story, but I was still living that part of the story. So I couldn't write it until I had gone through the experience. So after he dumped me, I was able to start writing like that half of the book. And the big problem with this book was like, this is 2 books. How do I make it 1 book? And that was the biggest struggle, was just trying to get it. And I finally came to like a toggle structure where we go back and forth between the 2 times, and it works.
Do you use, so I had the same thing with To the Bridge, the true story of motherhood and murder. And I had a lot of timelines, and I was like, how do I marry this for the reader? Now, I think I worked it out, but believe me, if you go on Amazon and look at some of the reviews, they're like, I don't know what she was doing, but I figured out how to do it. I used a Dateline. I just wound up saying, like, Tualatin,
that's what
2003. Did you really?
That's what I do. It's all my chapter headings are.
Oh my God.
Cleveland, summer, 1980.
The Dateline, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. The reason I did that, obviously I'm a journalist. I know what a freaking Dateline is within it, but I was actually rereading Catherine Boo's Behind the Beautiful Forevers. And I saw the Dateline. I was like, bingo.
Yep.
And that, I mean, you need to organize.
It's the only way to do it.
Structure equals freedom, guys. You need some structure.
Structure is huge.
It's everything. Yeah. It's everything. If you have a structure, you can throw everything in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. And just a side note, the title, I stole the title from Frank
Thomas.
Yeah, no.
Say that.
I had no idea who Frank Thomas was until the book published.
Yeah.
But I stole the title from Elroy. The second time I met him, I was at the LA Times Festival of Books. I met him the first year, 2007. I met him for the first time, and I looked at him and I went, oh my God, I know this man. Like if he could see me, he would come right over here and get me. He was so full of like longing, and
he's very compelling. I've met him.
He's a super compelling guy. And then the next year I met him again in the green room at the Festival of Books. And I asked him, what are you working on? And he said, I'm working on a memoir about my pursuit of women. And I was like, what's your title? And he said, The Big Hurt. And I was like, that's a good title. And I also thought to myself at the time, I'm going to be in that book. And we didn't get together for another year after that. I mean, it wasn't even like I wasn't flirting with him. We were not in touch. I had met him twice and I engaged a like imaginary affair with him in my head. I was miserable in my marriage. I wasn't going to.
What is it? What's it called? Be careful what you wish for.
What you wish for. Because in the end, the book was called The Hilliker Curse. He abandoned the title and he dedicated the book to me. So I was very much in that book. So it was very late in the game of writing. I mean, this book was called like Unsupervised for many years. And then I suddenly went, oh, the title is The Big Hurt. And what it refers to is just not just romantic heartbreak, but sort of the loss of the mother is basically what it is. That sadness when kids are abandoned by their parents. It lives with them, inside of them for the rest of their lives, as it has with me.
It's so funny because we grew up basically the same time, New York City, 1970s, no parents around. You have daughters who are in their 20s. My daughter just turned 32. And everything I just said, it's like, she'll say to me like, Mom, how in God's name did you, I was like, honey, it was the 70s. Look, there were no parents around. Like you raised yourself.
Yes.
And I actually just, interestingly, I just recorded right here in this chair, this little teenage memoir I wrote called The Queens of Montague Street. It's going to be out when we launch the Paloma Media website. I look back on that time and I realize that the parents were going through such exigencies of their own that I just don't. I mean, at the time I was like, I thought that guy was an asshole and, this and that. And why is this going on? I now just feel tenderly toward them because I know that they were as untethered from where they should have been. They grow up in the 1950s or 1960s. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, we can do all these things we weren't supposed to do. And they're doing them and they're busy and everybody's divorcing and there's group therapy and this and that. And the kids also when my daughter was in like 4th or 5th grade, my mom was visiting in LA. My daughter's sitting in the banquette and I'm helping her with her homework, her math or something. Like, I'm going to be super helpful with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, my mom said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm helping her with her homework. And she's like, oh, I never helped you with that. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah. But I actually don't carry that. I'm just like, you know what? They had their own shit to deal with. And we raised ourselves.
As I say in the book, especially in the case of my mother, our mothers were raised in the 50s and had the factory settings of the 50s, right? So my parents got married in like 61 or
Mine
59. Too. I can't remember. And had their 2 children and all of that. And then suddenly here's the sexual revolution, right?
That's right.
Everybody wants to go out and swing and the moms are sort of stuck, they're sort of caught up in the choices that they made in the different times.
My mom was, sorry. No, wait, what?
What? Is she alive? Okay, let's be careful.
I know. I'm just saying I don't think she was opposed.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So, I think that their lives got sort of skipped in a way. I mean, for my dad, I say in the book, like my dad, like put on his like man purse, slipped on his ballet loafers and his safari jacket and went out and like, he was Mr. Goodbar mowing down ladies like deep wheat, like a John Deere in deep wheat. That's how I describe him.
My dad,
crazy.
My dad was he was with Neuberger Bourbon, stock brokerage firm, and they made him the head of the downtown office. He slept with every single woman there, and he finally requested this secretary. She is dead, named Mary Ann, and she was about 5'10", built kind of like a battle axe with a walleye, and he requested her because he knew he wouldn't sleep with her. But of course, she was like, "Hi, Richard," and he's just like, "Marianne, stop brushing your tits against me." My dad died. He died in February 2020.
But his name was Richard as well?
Richard, yes, Richard. We are the same. We're actually the same person. Okay, we're just it's like when the ice storm came out, I was so taken. I remember seeing it in Los Feliz, and I called him the next day, and I was like, "Dad, you got to see this movie.
Yeah,
you have to see this. This is how we're going." He's like, "Honey, I can't. I lived it." So I actually think, interestingly, when I'm thinking about it now, because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, they were really operating without roadmaps sexually. It was like, we're allowed to do this, but then what's it going to do to the paradigm, which is the main thing? It explodes. Is it okay if it explodes? But then what happens now? I actually I'm going to posit that even though my dad was a bigger kind of roamer, let's say, it was my mother rolled with it more easily than he did. I think that kind of goes, I'll get pushed back on this. I kind of think the dudes need to have the home life kind of settled in order to feel
get out there
settled. Like I think when my parents divorced, my dad's world kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
Whereas my mom was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna. I figured this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do that. And she made a new life, and she got remarried, and like she made it work. Guys kind of like they lose their moorings. I realize this is a vast generalization. Please send all the hate mail to palomanyc@gmail.com or comment here. But I think that I think men are good being married. They need that. They need that thing.
But women,
and they're gonna try to fight for it, even if they're not involved in it.
Yeah,
they're gonna fight to keep it.
And they're going to be bitter if they lose it. My ex-husband, who was not an engaged husband in any sense, when I finally left him, he was so enraged that he committed an act of violence against me and trashed me to all my friends and continues to be just like that. So, I think that men rely on women to not just ground them, but like give them a context, like a context for being. We bring them
comfort,
people. We bring them comfort, friends, food, sex. We're sort of, they're looking to us for all of that stuff. And when we decide that we don't want to give it anymore, I don't know. I think my ex-husband became unmoored. He went and remarried a woman he had known for like less than 6 months. I mean,
that's pretty common.
Yeah.
All right, let's get off the man. Husband. I love men. I love men. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about New York City in the late 70s. So I went to a different private school. What does this say? I cheat on all my women. Yeah. Well, I don't, I definitely think that I really don't know. I am not a student of cheating or anything like this, but I think that people compartmentalize. You know what? Like, this is where I have my family and my this and that, but this is where I have the sex. It's like, fine, whatever. People do what you want to do. I got no prerogatives or morals.
Except that there's a double standard, right? Where the men can cheat, but the women cannot. I mean, if the women cheat, we're just
I think that's
sluts.
Bullshit. No, I completely reject that.
Really?
Think absolutely, 100%.
On what grounds?
I reject it because I know plenty of women who have arranged their lives that they get to do what they want to do, and that's how it is. I don't buy that. I think that if someone's telling you that, they have to have a better imagination. Yeah. Okay. It's like, there's not two entrees on the buffet here, guys. There's like 1,000, or go make some more. You know what the name of my Substack is? Make More Pie. Go make more pie. Don't tell me I get to choose between apple and pumpkin. I don't like either. I want to make something else.
Yeah.
Okay. New York City. Late 1970s. So I was just writing we used to go out, obviously, to the clubs after hours. I never got carded ever until I moved to Los Angeles when I was 24. We used to go to this place, Ice Palace 57, which was a gay disco, and dance with like all the gay men. It was awesome. We were 14.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to St. Anne's. But of course, I too was asked to leave.
Oh, were you? What for?
For not going to school for a year and a half.
Oh, that'll do it.
But I had a weird thing. I just wrote, guys, it's going to be up. It's called The Queens of Montague Street. You can go right now. Go over to Amazon and buy it. It's a little 20-page memoir. But I did just record it again,
nice.
Paloma Media website's going to launch in like a week and a half, and it'll be up there. I didn't go to school. I just didn't go.
Yeah.
So, but because it was, it's a progressive private school, like they think like, well, these kids are smart enough to know whether they want to go to school, and that they do go to school is amazing. I was like, I'm worried about school or a nickel bag. I didn't want to go to school. So anyway, so that's where I went and gotten a lot of, not a lot of trouble, the typical kind of upper middle class girl trouble that you get in. You get caught shoplifting panties and, maybe a cop stops you because you're trying to jump the turnstiles or something. I had some bad.
Do you know where I shoplifted? Do you remember the Azuma on 86th Street?
No, you know why? I do remember, but I lived in Brooklyn Heights. Upper 86th Street was like
I was Upper East Side. I was raised on the Upper East Side. I went to the Dalton School, which was like a very fancy.
Do you know the Fonsecas?
No, I don't.
You didn't? Oh my God. They poured it over to St. Anne's, and those beautiful, literally the most beautiful people you've ever seen in your life. 4 siblings. Oh my God, Kina Fonseca. She was older, standing in the elevator, and she had on these espadrilles with they tied around with ribbons. And I was like, oh my God, I saw those in Vogue, and now there's a girl in the elevator wearing them. Anyway, she was amazing. Her brother Kaio is a painter. He lives in Pietrasanta, and the youngest one is married to I'll think of it in a second. Anyway, so shoplifting, yes.
So I went to the Dalton School, which was kind of how do I describe it? I mean, a fancy school, very prestigious and elite and expensive. My father, who was a working journalist, he paid for my whole childhood, private school, college, summer camp, everything by writing freelance, which
and
is
that's
sort of
how
amazing.
It is now. We're both very rich. I'm very, very rich. Oh yeah, from freelance writing, it's incredible. It's like the fast train to riches.
But at the time, now you are rich.
I got $10.
So at the time, the headmaster of that school was Donald Barr, who is now famously known as being the father of Bill Barr.
Wow, he's old. I mean, Bill Barr is like 75 years old.
And Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was teaching algebra. I mean, I knew Mr. Epstein.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Donald Barr hired Jeffrey Epstein to teach at the Dalton School.
This is like,
which is what he did until he made his fortune.
This is like when people say, currently or whatever in the 80s, do priests go into the priesthood specifically to prey on children? I mean, why in the world would I know Jeffrey Epstein was apparently some big egghead in that way.
Yeah.
But
he was a really popular teacher, actually. The kids loved him.
Oh my God.
The other thing that what is
I think Ben Dreyfuss said that all the Dalton kids bought their drugs from the Stuyvesant kids.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, well.
Maybe. Where did we just, I don't know.
So anyway, at the time, I mean, and this is in the book too. I mean, it was such a total fucking hotbed of inappropriate shit. And they allowed the casting director for Louis Malle to come and walk the hallways and look into the classrooms looking for a young girl to play the child prostitute in Pretty Baby.
Which Brooke Shields eventually got.
Brooke Shields,
was she there?
Damn her, she got it.
She wasn't at Dalton.
No, she wasn't at Dalton. But I was asked to come in and audition for that role. I mean, my mother wouldn't let me, and that was probably the best move, her best parenting move. Okay. She was like, "You're going to have a normal childhood," which
Martin Amis. That's who Isabel Fonseca is married to. Martin Amis. Yes. Okay.
Anyway, so it was like, so by the time I left Dalton, it was sort of like out of the frying pan and into the fire. I mean, there was so much inappropriate adult child sex happening in the 70s.
I mean, I know this, I realize when we're looking through it through the lens of presentism as a word that I really like these days. Like we're judging from our viewpoint now what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. I remember there was this little bar on Montague Street in Brooklyn Heights called Capulets. And that's where Capulets on Montague. Get it? Romeo and Juliet, for those that don't get it. I probably would be one of those people that don't get it. I don't read a lot of Shakespeare. But anyway, it's where all the teachers used to go and the kids would hang out. Of course, the kids would hang out because nobody fucking carded you. Guys, I don't know how to explain this. Nobody carded you. I mean, I wasn't a beer drinker, but I would go there and sit with people and they'd be drinking. It'd be the parents and not the parents, the students and the teachers. I know at least 2 friends of mine that, well, one wasn't actually like having sex with, but she was definitely screwing around with one of the teachers. One definitely was. The head of the school, Stanley Bosworth, who has died, who started this school. There was a huge article about him and St. Anne's, oh man, like in the early 2000s in New York Magazine, literally talking about how pervasive the sexual relationships were.
Amazing.
But I gotta tell you, and I know, I understand from our present vantage point, it's very wrong. But to be a 17-year-old girl,
didn't seem wrong at the time.
It wasn't. It's like, you're 17, he's 30. I mean, I know. Okay, so hand to God, I never did. I've never been with anyone older than my late ex, my daughter's dad, who was 4 years older than me. I just haven't. But I mean, at that time, that I don't know if we weren't children at 17. And maybe the reason we weren't children at 17, not in all ways, but in some ways, is because we had to fucking raise ourselves. I mean,
well, we weren't children. I wasn't a child from like 12 on. I was told, here's a good one.
I'm not trying to do a Milo Yiannopoulos impression. And I'm not condoning it. All I'm telling you is what it was like.
Yeah.
Okay? Relax.
So when I was 11 or 12, and I was, I matured early and I looked
12
older.
Is 12. I mean,
12, yeah. And I would hang out at a comic book store that was next door to the building I lived in, called General Lee Fun. And there was the guy who
General Lee, like General
Lee, Lee Fun. I mean, I asked you, what the fuck, right? And there was this guy who ran it, this guy, Jeff. I think his name was Jeff. And he asked me out on a date. So I, being 12, or maybe I was 13 at the time, I was like, okay, I'll go on a date with you. He came to my apartment in his dinner jacket. My mother answered the door, said hi to him, and sent me out on the date with the 30-year-old guy without just don't stay out too late, honey.
It's incredible.
What the fuck?
It's incredible. When my daughter was 22 and coming back to visit in Portland, I'd have her tracking her on her iPhone. Yeah. Where are you? It's 12:30. I can't go to sleep. I don't know where you are. Yeah. No, it's okay. I have a corollary to that, and then also a little sidebar. So, Catherine Mangu Ward, lover, my editor-in-chief at Reason Magazine, she recommended on the Reason Roundtable this week the Bennington College podcast.
Oh, which I did. The reading series.
Oh, you're in it?
I did it.
Well, there's a podcast out about it now.
Oh, okay.
Anyway. And not only does it turn out, I know a lot of people that are talking in it, and I knew people that graduated in that class, and that is a class that included Bret Easton Ellis and Donna Tartt and Jonathan Lethem.
Famous class.
Very
big article was written
I know
about
other
them.
people
Amazing article about that.
But the stories that they are telling, this true story, telling a story about this one guy in Beverly Hills. He was probably 40s. He had a convertible Rolls, and he would take all the young, handsome young boys from the Harvard school and from the other fancy private schools in LA, and they'd hang out at his house, and they'd do drugs and get the nice clothes that he gave them, and some intimations that he might have been giving them handjobs or whatever. I am telling you, this is a completely fucking true story. My parents, there was a dude in Brooklyn Heights. He was a 50-year-old guy. He lived on Columbia Heights. And he was friendly with my brother and his friend, who were 12 and 13. And he would have them over to his house. So my parents decided to have him over for some cheese and crackers and wine to meet Mr. Smith or whatever his name was. I remember them sitting in the living room. Okay, guys, I was 14 and I was what the fuck is this? Why is this 50-year-old dude having my 12-year-old brother and his friend over to his house? I could smell it. And my parents were just Well, they weren't. My dad was streets. Maybe it actually wasn't my dad. Maybe it was my mom and my stepdad. Ooh, actually. But as it turned out, my brother, who was super physical, super athletic, very kind of sharp, he dipped, but he left his buddy there. And it turned out his brother was getting molested at 13.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sure this shit happens now, but I'm just saying that back then there was a weird benightedness.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 13 and you dressed up for this date and your mother was
and what's strange about it is like, I remember him picking me up and I remember, I think we went to a movie. But I have no memory of anything that happened on that date. Like I've lost it. So I don't know. Did he try to kiss me? Did he, I don't know what he did. I don't remember. Maybe I blocked it or maybe it just wasn't memorable. But here's the thing, like in my family, and I'm not going to draw a whole culture-wide, make an assumption about everybody, but in my family, like sophistication was the thing, being funny and sophisticated and in the know. And it was like we were supposed to grow up pretty fast. Yeah, somebody's saying it was probably a taxi driver. Yeah, and I was I was a young Jodie Foster lookalike in 1976 and 8, So, and that was very much in the culture, it was just sort of fine. And there was no Me Too. There was nobody was questioning it at all. That's why it's so widespread.
I want to just interject one thing just to make sure that we don't make our parents out to be these complete. So I will tell you one time I got, I was walking home from the dry cleaners. I picked up my dad's dry cleaning. This is on Montague Street, which is a tiny little neighborhood, Brooklyn Heights. And the kid that delivered the dry cleaning followed me out and he also had some dry cleaning and I'd seen him in the neighborhood, tiny neighborhood, but he didn't really speak English. And he pushed me down this little underground stairwell on Montague. And he got me up against the wall and he's like grinding. He's going, Linda, que linda. And I took the hangers and I swiped at his face and I ran. And I got home. My dad came in and I told my dad, he went the fuck out. And he looked for that kid. He also went to the dry cleaner, Murray, such a nice guy, concentration camp victim. I remember my dad always broke his heart. He had numbers on his arm and the kid was never seen again. So it's not like these parents were just like, oh, whatever, do whatever you want. But in terms of just sort of like other granular stuff, they were not there. They weren't around.
Every podcast I've done, interview I've done on this book, sooner or later, at some point, one of us will say, it was a different time.
It was.
And it was.
It was. Guys, and you can't, that's the thing. Like you try to judge it from now, but
Here's a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
How many times were you mugged as a kid?
I had my wallet stolen at the Waverly Theater. I had a $5 in it. It was the midnight showing of Rocky Horror Show. Like, I don't even know why I was carrying a wallet. I never carried a wallet, but I had this like little wallet that I had $5 in it. I got that stolen. And I think that's it. I haven't really, it's funny. I haven't been mugged.
I was mugged like 7 or 8 times as a kid.
Oh, well.
Amazing.
Brooklyn Heights is also really pretty freaking safe.
Is it?
That's where I spent, you're mostly around your own neighborhood.
Well, I was mugged all over the place. But the most memorable one, and you reminded me of this. So unbelievably, my parents bought a brownstone on 95th Street because it was a different time.
Because you could actually
do that back then.
Back in the Heights at that time, you could buy a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights in the 1970s for $100,000.
That's what we did, and this was on 95th between Park and Lexington. And so I was hanging out on my front stoop up by the top. And you know how there's the front stoop, there's the top door, and then the stairs go down. And then there's a set of stairs that goes down into the basement. And I was hanging out, and these kids came down the block, and they came up my front stoop and they had sharpened pencils that they put to my throat. And they were like, give me your money. And I was like, I don't have any money. I was like 9, and they were like, and I started hyperventilating. I was scared. And they're like, why are you breathing so fast? You turned on, what's going on? And then they were like, all right, jump. And they tried to get me to jump off my stoop down to the basement level, which would have broken both my legs, And I just started crying and they finally backed off and they left. But it was just crazy back in those days.
Well, I didn't live near Central Park, but it was like, you definitely did not walk in lots of parks of Central Park at night. No. Like it was understood. You just didn't do it. Now, on the other hand, one of my best friends lives up on West 56th Street. I was living at 14th on the street at the time. I'm on Chinatown now. I would leave her house at 1 a.m, walk home down Fifth Avenue. Like you won't even see anybody.
Yeah.
Like you're totally safe. Like totally safe. New York is very, very, very safe.
I was just thinking that walking over here, like I stopped to sit on a bench for a minute and I was like, I feel safe here.
It's totally safe.
I feel like nothing is going to happen
New York is
now,
safe.
but it really wasn't that way back in the day.
So let me ask you a question, just to get to LA for a minute, just to jump up 30 years or so. Did we meet through the late, wonderful Kathy Sipe? Is that how we know each other? No,
we did not. I never met Kathy.
Really?
I never knew her. No. We met. Did we meet? Well, because were we both writing for LA Observed?
I did write for LA Observed
and
for a while.
David Renson, of course.
David Renson.
Shout out to David Renson.
David
if
Renson.
You're watching.
He does. David actually watches. Okay. Yeah.
He'll love this because he loves us.
He does. He does. And LA Bad Girls.
LA Bad Girls. But yeah. No, and also, I mean, you were writing for The Weekly, right?
LA
and
Weekly.
I was a fan of yours. I loved your journalism, remember?
I've invited her here just for
just
this
to say that.
This
She's
moment.
an amazing journalist. She really is the fucking shit on paper. And I can't remember what the piece was, but I wrote to you and I was like, that was one of the best things I've ever read. And you were like, hi, thank you. And then
let's go drink.
And then we sort of moved into each other's
we
orbits.
moved into, and I just saw Sandra Singh Low. We hooked up at this crazy place in upstate New York, this crazy, like, my God, her friends. I was like, so how much property do you have here?
You went up there.
Yeah, he's like, well, okay, I'm exaggerating.
David Schweitzer's, right?
David Schweitzer's husband or boyfriend.
Yes, that's where I'm staying now, is in David Schweitzer's loft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's like, I was like, how much property do you have? He's like, well, we have like 12,000 acres. I was like, wait, what? It's like, anyway, it was really nice. And the
nice
house
work
had
if you
like,
can get it.
the house had like 11 bedrooms. Like it's one of these houses, like these crazy old houses. They walk you upstairs and it's like, creak, creak, Miss Haversham lived here, right? And then you're walking down the hall and you keep walking past doorway after doorway. And like one room just has like baby cribs and linens. And then it's like, oh, and you'll be here with the, I was like, okay. Anyway, it was nice to see her. Yeah. So,
and of course it's gay men. So it's perfectly
gay
appointed.
Men. So there's hors d'oeuvres and you get up in the morning and the bacon is already sizzling and it was quite good. Well, thank you for tapping me yesterday. I had no idea you were coming. And guys, thanks everyone for tuning in. Yeah. Thank you for giving us our first $10.
First $10.
You vandals. Yeah, it's a weird.
I want 5 of that.
Oh, well, I think this tequila, you just drank like $8 worth of that tequila from Duncan McGregor. But stay tuned. We got some stuff coming up. Maybe I'll try to get in the studio here with Matt. I don't know when, but whatever. We owe you guys something. And we're happy to see you here. Erika, thank you. Good luck.
The big
Buy
hurt.
the book.
Buy the book. Buy the book.
It's available everywhere, and I'm gonna read it too. Okay, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Great.
Right?
Fun.